But we start with the recent release of the College Football Playoff Committee rankings. And Wisconsin has made the cut. The unbeaten Badgers, the last Power 5 unbeaten, finally among the all-important top 4. Wisconsin comes in this week at number 4, behind third-ranked Oklahoma, number 2, Auburn, and Clemson, who takes over the top spot after losses this past weekend by both Alabama and Miami. Alabama, though, drops only to number 5. Georgia sits in the 6th spot. Bulldogs will take on the Tigers in the SEC Championship. Ohio State is number 8 heading into Saturday's Big Ten Championship. Buckeyes win over Michigan only impressed the committee enough to move the Bucks up 1 spot. Penn State also up 1 tick to 9 after crushing Maryland. The Nittany Lions now sit, wait, and hope the committee sees fit to offer them an invite to one of the New Year's 6 bowl games. Michigan State stays put, still at number 16. Spartans now have 9 wins, just 1 year removed from a 9-loss season. Most projections have MSU headed to the Outback Bowl. Northwestern also with a shot to win 10. Cats Saturday smackdown of Illinois bumping them to number 21. Potential bowl trips include the Citrus and Music City, among others. For more perspective on this week's rankings, we say hello to good friend and BTN football analyst Glen Mason. Let's start with Wisconsin, Mace. It's something of a non-issue at this point because if they beat Ohio State, we know they're part of the playoff, but it's always fun to debate and disagree. Do you have an issue with Wisconsin being at number 4 behind 3 other teams, including 2-loss Auburn?
You know, Rick, I could argue that they should be a little bit higher. And as you well know on this show, I've been on Wisconsin's bandwagon the last couple of weeks and defending him for that weak schedule that they've been playing, but they're undefeated. But, you know, at this point, as long as they're in the top 4 and they control their own destiny, I can live with that, and I think most Badger fans can too.
Obviously, anything outside of the top 4 would have been a lot more controversial this week. And those who want to make an argument against Auburn, remember the committee has always benefited teams that have quality wins. And Auburn, in recent weeks, has knocked off 2 then number 1 teams, first Georgia, and then this past weekend, of course, Alabama. Ohio State, meanwhile, could be in a bit of trouble, Mace. Just 1 spot up to number 8, still behind Miami despite the Canes loss, still behind Alabama despite the Crimson Tide loss. Do you believe Ohio State should have moved up further?
No, you know, I really don't think so. When you see where they are, I think they're as high as they possibly can be. And not only do they have 2 losses, but they had really 2 bad losses. You know, they got manhandled by the University of Oklahoma, and I don't think anybody can still explain what happened to them out in Iowa City, getting beat 55-24. So with 2 losses, I don't know how anybody could expect for them to be ahead of those teams that are really good football teams with only 1 loss.
And at number 8, there now comes the time to play the scenario game. Should Ohio State go on to beat Wisconsin and get into the mix for the playoff? Let's hash out a couple of scenarios. Let's say chalk holds, Mace. The ACC champ, let's say it's Clemson goes. The SEC champ is going to go. Oklahoma beats TCU. That's going to leave 1 spot. What if it is 2-loss Ohio State as a Big Ten champ versus 1-loss Alabama, currently 3 spots ahead of the Buckeyes? Who should go?
Oh, boy, you're making me work tonight, Rick. You know, that's an interesting scenario because you have a 2-loss, obviously, Ohio State team, a 1-loss Alabama team. The thing I would look at Alabama, and you always hear the committee talk about, is that, you know, how is the team playing of late? And you look at the last 2 or 3 games, you got to throw out that game against Mercer that they played. But Mississippi State and the game against Auburn, Alabama didn't play very well. And on the other side of that, yeah, 2-loss Ohio State, but they would have beaten a number 4 Wisconsin, and they'd have a conference championship to their credit. So, you know, if it was me making the decision, I'm going to go with the Buckeyes.
Alabama getting a little bit of a boost to see Mississippi State still inside the top 25 as well. Let's flip the situation here, Mace. Let's say that Clemson is the team that gets upset on championship weekend. Miami beats the Tigers, the number 1 team, a team whose resume the committee absolutely loves. And it comes down to a 2-loss Ohio State champ against a 2-loss non-ACC champ Clemson team that, remember, is currently #1. Who gets the spot?
You know, I think you'd have to go with Clemson. You see where they've been all year long, and I've been beating them up all year long because people have given them a pass with that defeat that they had against a poor Syracuse team. And, yeah, I know the quarterback, you know, didn't play in that game. But when you look at it, the one loss they would have, you know, the most recent loss would have been against Miami. That's a one-loss, really, you know, good football team. And I go back on the other side of that, you know, with Ohio State, you know, 2 losses, 2 bad losses, especially that Iowa loss. I think you'd have to go with Clemson.